everyone, we're at the ASUS suite at CES 2019. We already have a teardown of the Matrix card, which is behind me, but now we're going to be giving you a walkthrough of the 3 new 2060 cards, and also you've seen it before, but it's more or less in a finalized state now, the Dominus, the board that is for the upcoming 28-core Intel CPUs that you may have seen at Computex when we did our video on that. Before that, this video is brought to you by Thermaltake's Core P3 case. The Core P3 is one of the most unique cases on the market. It can serve as an open-air standing chassis, a test bench in vertical or horizontal orientation, or as a wall-mounted showcase PC. The Core P3 now comes with a 5mm thick tempered glass panel for its side, but keeps the front, top, and back open for air. The Core P3's versatility as a display piece, test bench, or standard desktop is reinforced by its price of roughly $110 on Amazon. You can learn more at the link in the description below. So let's walk through these today. We'll start with the 2060s. The RTX 2060s from ASUS come in 3 different SKUs right now that we know of. There's the Turbo, there's the Dual, and there's the Strix. In terms of pricing and availability, the answer is I don't know, so we can get that out of the way right now. The Turbo probably is going to be at the low end. It is a blower card. It's not the reference PCB that NVIDIA used, though, because if you look at the PCB, it is longer, obviously, than the 2060 Founders Edition, which is why they don't have a soldered PCI Express cable to it like NVIDIA did. So in that aspect, a bit better, but the cooler is obviously significantly different. It is a blower cooler. The next card, so we'll talk about the Dual, or actually let's talk about the Strix. The Strix uses the same PCB as the 2070 Strix. So if you know the 2070 Strix specs, you know the Strix specs for the 2060 here, and otherwise it's a Strix card just with a 2060 GPU on it. And then there's the Dual, which should be kind of in between the two that I just showed right here. So it's a dual GPU, dual fan cooler instead. And they're all axial fans, other than the blower card. So, I mean, that's all there is to the 2060s right now that we know of. Pricing will really be the big thing here. The rest of it, for VRM quality, for PCB quality, it doesn't matter quite as much as with the 2080 Ti because it is a lower power part. So we'll talk about those later as we get more info, but ASUS does have 2060s coming up if you had any question. The more interesting thing is the Dominus Extreme. And this is for the 28-core CPUs coming out. It's the 3647 Intel socket. We saw a version of this previously, but now the VRM cooling is more or less finalized. So we have some shots of that, I think, of the massive heatsink. It is, I don't know, maybe like 16 inches. Do we have dimensions? We do have dimensions. So 14 by 14 board, and the VRM heatsink is 100% of that length. So that's the VRM heatsink. Under it, we haven't taken it apart and looked at it, but they are IR35s for the MOSFETs. And then let's just do a board walkthrough. EPS power connectors, I think there are 44 or 40, I think it's 44 pins total. So there are 4 8-pins and 2 6-pins in there. There's 2 24-pin connectors. Near the 2 24-pin connectors, ASUS just decided they had a surplus of pins from their pin factory, and they also mounted, I'm counting 6 4-pin fan headers next to the 2 24-pin headers. Next to that, it looks like some RGB pinouts of different varieties. Bonus points for that for ASUS. Actually, quite a few connectors on here. Normal 7-segment display, start, reset, best button in the world, which is the safe boot button, and it looks like a retry button as well, so that's all pretty standard stuff. Bottom side, more pin factory oversupply, so there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 4-pin connectors down there. There are, we'll just show a shot of the board, and you can count all the pins if you would like to do that. Otherwise, though, there is a small fan for the chipset. Now, I don't know, we don't know how hot these will get for the new 3647 socket CPUs. Typically, though, chipsets really don't get that hot. They don't really need the cooling. But I think what's going on here is, first of all, lots of I/O on this type of CPU because it is effectively a server. It's a Xeon class CPU, 3175X or something like that, which Intel has shown previously. So you're dealing with more I/O. Maybe it'll get hot enough to require a fan. So for NVMe slots, there are 2 DIMM.2s, which ASUS has had on boards before. Those are flanking the memory slots. Memory slots, 6 on each side, so you've got a total of 12. And I mean, for the CPU, we'll talk more about that once we have it in hand, if we do end up with that one. I guess one more note that's worth pointing out is on the I/O cover over where there's another massive heatsink, there is an LCD. So We saw this with the godlike MSI board. ASUS is doing their own version of an LCD on the board. It's on top of the I/O. We'll see how it looks when we hopefully get one to test. But I'll leave that one there for now. We don't have pricing or availability exactly on that, but we'll have more info for you soon on the 3175X product and all of its motherboards going with it. So thank you for watching. Check the Matrix teardown if you haven't seen it, or check back if it's not up yet. And I will see you all next time.